Welcome all. Welcome to Sinead Moynihan. Sinead, it's absolutely fantastic to have you back. Can you tell us a bit about yourself, Sinead?
Absolutely, Buddy. So I am many things. I'm a mom, a wife, a sister, a friend. I'm a lover of fun. I really love to remember to enjoy myself. I'm an amateur ukulele player. I've recently become a co-host on a radio show in UCC. It's called Reraw Manal. Um, and in my day job, I'm an occupational therapist. And very recently, I've become a design thinking convert. I think I'm addicted to it.
I'm delighted to hear you actually call it out. You are a design thinking expert, Sinead, and I've seen you in operation as well. I've seen the real fun part of design thinking, which I think you call out, and we'll come back to it shortly. Sinead, I have to ask you, what's the relevance of your backdrop to who you are?
Yeah, I love it. I put it up there, and Buddy, you called it out really well. You're like, it looks like you're being baptized. And to be honest, after completing the postgrad diploma with yourselves in UCC, it is like a rebirth, a renewal, a new way of thinking, and lots of new tools about how to come up with solutions and prototypes for really complex problems. So this particular picture, it was part of my work for the artist in residence for Caroline Connolly, a fantastic artist who you brought into the program. And I was lucky enough to have the time to sign up for her workshops. And this particular work, it was a bit of work around close looking. And this little stream is at the end of my laneway, and I never looked at it closely. And it's beautiful. So being given the opportunity and the time to do this piece of work with an artist in residence in the course, it really opened my eyes to literally what is on my doorstep. And this is me playing in the stream on a very cold November morning, making some homemade moss, I think. I took a notion that day. And playing and looking and slowing down right on my doorstep, thanks to the artist in residence on the course.
Yeah, and of course, it's also critical to design thinking, though, that we need to receive the world in new ways, whether that's wearing our old shoes, wearing the shoes of others, actually rewalking through environments that we've stopped seeing because we've become so used to them, and finding that complexity again that's in our environment. So I love that story, Sinead, and I think it really nicely ties in with your concept of play and creativity. Um, I remember reading something you wrote during the year, Sinead, as well, and you spoke about imagine if we had organizations where moments, I think, of playing creativity were as frequent as moments of drinking coffee, etc. Why have you gone here? Why are these moments important?
Yeah, I've gone here really because it was always part of my life. So in my 20s, I was so lucky. I traveled the world and I played. In my 30s, I put the head down, had a child, worked hard, set up my own business, and I forgot about the play. And now in this new decade of my 40s, it's like I actually think I can find the balance. I can weave them both. So, like you pointed to, I really started to look at playing creativity in my project for our final project in the second semester. So, I began to research like, what's going on in the brain? What is the neuroscience of when we take these moments to stop and play? And what I discovered was that we optimize our capacity to problem solve, to collaborate, to truly innovate when we weave moments of play and creativity. There's a fantastic neuroscientist called Dr. Srini Pillai, and he reckons we should have the system of focus on focus, focus. Whereas the systems we work in now are focus, 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 fatigue. Whereas when we get that unfocused time, and that unfocus is like a moment of play and creativity in the office, a mini daydream, a little snooze at your desk, a little doodle. There, as part of my research as well, I researched the best practices for unfocus. It sounds like an oxymoron, but they exist. They are best practices to help us access that part of our brain. And what it means is that we can then function at a capacity that isn't reachable when we're just focusing, and reaching that fatigue place. So, interestingly enough, when I started to research for my project, I became more and more addicted to play and to the need to get this idea out there and into our workplaces.
Mm. And I think I remember you having a quote. I can't remember from who, Sinead. You said, "Oh, that we are built to play, but play builds us." You know, and I
We
think
are
that's
built to play and built by play. Absolutely.
mm,
That's Dr. Stuart Brown from the National Institute for Play. He's a play scientist. And when I came across that role, I was like, wow, maybe I could be a play scientist. I'd love to bring, a briefcase of Lego to work. I think that would be my dream work kit.
mm. And
Yeah.
actually, I'm going to come back to that because I hope that is what you're going to offer the outside world, Sinead, and we will come back to it.
Mm.
So just, I suppose, a point for you then, when you first started experiencing design thinking, obviously you felt play was being forgotten about. And I think you spoke about maybe an over focus on process. And I know we've been saying for a while it needs to be more mindset. It needs to be, a way of seeing the world. Do you feel design thinking has lost that sort of creativity, that playfulness part?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Yeah, I think so. Because even when you think of design thinking or when you read the literature, it does speak about creative thinking. And people are frightened of that word. People are like, I'm not creative. I can't draw. I can't paint. So creative mindsets and creative thinking, it's really loaded. So it was thanks to you actually, Poddy. I thought I had to drop the play and work with the creativity. I was like, oh, can I have them intermingled? You were like, yeah, leave the play in there for now and see where it goes. So I kept play and creativity. I call them two peas in a pod. I didn't separate them out. And I thought that by bringing that element of playfulness, creativity can come from that place of playfulness. That maybe sometimes we go to a creative place, we're a bit serious, like we're to have to produce something really creative and original here. Whereas when we play with it, surprisingly enough, creative and original stuff will emerge from that playful place. And interestingly enough, a lot of research supports that as well, that symbiotic relationship of play feeding creativity and creativity feeding play. So I'm glad I've kept them as two peas of the same pod.
Yeah, no, it's lovely, and to see the impact that your project is and has created as well is fantastic. Sinead, I am intrigued by your project. I'm intrigued that you have tried to address that issue of maybe trying to bring play, creativity more front and central. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you did that in your project?
Absolutely. So my project, the big how might we, so all the design thinking nerds out there, the how might we is a big phrase that we use in design thinking. So my how might we was how might we design a tool to increase play and creativity. So that tool I came up with was a play and creativity reflection dial. So I based my dial pretty much on a clock. We are all very familiar. So the design principles of familiarity with a clock were central to my artifact design. And on that dial, really, there was 4 zones. In the play and creativity zone, half in the playing creativity zone, no crack here zone, and warming to the playing creativity zone. Kind of at 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock. And the reason for that dial was that I wanted to bring people's individual awareness to where they were after they experienced a creative or a playful moment or activity. Because I believe playing creativity, it's like a spectrum. I may love having a Lego session. My colleague next to me might absolutely hate it. And that's not firing her play or her creativity, whereas she might like the daydreaming doodly bit. And that's not firing off mine. So I made this dial for individuals to become more self aware about what is their play and creativity toolkit so that they can then feel empowered to use that as they needed if they felt they were hanging out in the no crack zone a bit too much. So that was the first half of my artifact was the dial. And then I got a lot of feedback to say, yeah, but why am I using this? And why do you need me to be playful or in that play and creativity zone? I don't understand. So then I had to build a second artifact. And that second artifact was a workshop. And that workshop really called out why play and creativity is important, the neuroscience, the impact on the brain, the impact on collaborative team building, on innovation, and on problem solving. And within that workshop, I call out the why behind play and creativity, and also it's an experiential learning workshop where individuals make their own dial as well as go through a series of best practice play and creative exercises to see what resonates for them.
It's lovely, and like the one thing that struck me and strikes me still, Sinead, that this has to have a life beyond, the PG dip. This has to go further, because I think you've done fascinating research right back into the neuroscience. You've been evaluating this artifact, whether it's the dial, which is a reflection tool, or the workshop itself. Where's it going to go from here, Sinead?
Yeah, I'd love it to go further because as I was saying, the more and more I've researched it, the more and more sold I was that this is essential for how we work now. So my research was only looking at productivity, at collaborative team building, and at innovation and creative thought and problem solving. There's a whole other side I didn't even lift the bonnet on, and that's well-being in the workplace. And I'm sure it has an impact in that avenue too. So where I'd like to see it, I'd like to see it leap out of the bounds of my final project report. And I'd love to take it into workplaces, into places of innovation, into places where they want to work on collaborative team building or want to work on, creative thinking, problem solving, enhancing innovation. So places like innovation hubs, design thinking schools, team building, teamwork, strategy days. So basically, I'd love to share it with the world. So yeah.
Yeah, and what amazes me as well, Sinead, it gets us to reflect more deeply. So there's that individual journey, but also it's fun. It's a fun workshop. It's a fun few hours. It bonds people together. It brings people together. People start to talk about things they never spoke about before. So again, I can't wait. I know you've been evaluating it during the program, so it isn't as if this thing is just a pipe dream. So again, your call to action is companies, please contact Sinead. It needs to be out there. It needs to be adopted. It needs to be, I suppose, allowed to have an impact in organizations. Sinead, you spoke earlier about, you've a busy life, and you spoke about the differences between the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, etc. How were you able to make a program like this work for you? And maybe also, why did you go on to it?
Yeah. So how do I make it work? A lot of timetabling, a lot of scheduling. Um, so I made it work by being really organized, just know what are your assignments, timetable them in, know how you're going to dedicate work to keep on top of your college work. So timetabling and scheduling, number one, a great family support, number two. Um, and I guess passion, I was driven by the real drive to learn more about design thinking. So that goes to your second question. What made me sign up for this course? I had just completed a postgrad called Healthcare Innovation. And I came across, we had a module in design thinking. And to me, it was the golden mecca of what we needed right now in the world. So I was very passionate to upskill in that. But interestingly enough, actually, what did keep me on track was remembering to play,
Mm.
most importantly. There was times where I think even earlier on in January or February, I was saying to you, oh my God, Paddy, I'm stuck. I'm in the treacle. I don't know what's going on. And you're like, what's the name of your project again? Right. Have you been walking the talk? You really encouraged me to remember what it is I'm studying and to weave that into my life. So, yeah,
Mm.
I remember
Yeah.
to play as well.
And I remember, and it's maybe for anyone that's following up with Sinead on what she's talking about here, is ask her about the Lego boat, her Lego boat as well, because I think it's a fascinating story of how she herself drank her own Kool-Aid or drank her own champagne during this project. And I think it's a fascinating subject. So I'm going to leave that there, Sinead. So if anyone wants to know more, they can contact you directly. Sinead,
Yes.
thank you so much again for your time.
And thank you, Buddy. Thanks for being part of a great course.
Thanks, Sinead. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.